Bright Cutie. Every student matters.
Hello everyone. Now let's talk about crisis in Germany. That is, here we are going to talk about the Weimar Republic. Now students, before this we were talking about the new democratic socialism, right? We understood the differences in the ideologies related to Marxism, that is the Russian communists, and here the new democratic socialism that arose in different parts of Europe, right? So based on this, here now we are going to talk about Germany, where we see the rise of Nazi ideology. Now talking about the Nazi ideology, we are going to learn that later on. But what was the situation in Germany that led to the rise of Nazi ideology, that led to the rise of Nazism and Adolf Hitler, right? The man who was somewhere responsible for the Second World War, to start the Second World War, right? So here, let us try to understand the political scenario in Germany, the structure of the administration here, and what were the changes that happened here when we are talking about the First World War. Okay. Now students, if I am telling you the First World War, definitely you must remember the timeline by now. It means that we are talking about the period that is 1914 to 1918. It extended till 1919 when the peace treaty was signed, right, at Versailles. So here when we are talking about the First World War, we are talking about two important groups that participated in the war, and it means that we are talking about the Allied forces and the Central forces or the Central powers, right students? Now here, since we are talking about Germany, do you know from which side did Germany participate in the war? Yes, it was the Central powers, right? So Germany fought from the Central powers and along with the Austrian Empire. They fought against the Allies. Allies consisted of England, France and Russia, that was later joined by the United States. Now here students, till now we have read a lot of times. In the revolutions that you have read earlier, we have definitely talked about the First World War, right? Now in those parts we talked about the Allied powers more. Here, since Germany participated from the Central powers, so here we are going to talk about this, right? So there was this fight and the victorious power is the Allied group here, right students? These are some of the basic points that I am not going to repeat again and again since we have read it a lot of times now, okay? So what happened? Here we see that initially Germany was gaining control over France and Belgium. So they were on a safer side, right? But later on, with the joining or US entry in 1917, we see that the Allies, they defeated the Central powers finally in November 1918. Now here let's have a look at this map. Now this is the map consisting of all the important countries that participated in the First World War, right? So here we have Germany, Austria-Hungary, they were from the Central powers, right? And here we have Russia, France, Belgium. So cut. So they were participating from the Allied forces or Allied powers, right? So initially we see that Germany, it gained control over Belgium and France, but later on with the entry of United States, we see that they were defeated. The Allied powers, they became more powerful and Germany was defeated in the First World War, right? Now the scenario here in Germany, what was there? So here we see that it led to the defeat of Imperial Germany and abdication of Emperor. Now who was the Emperor during this period? It was Wilhelm II, who was the Emperor of Germany. So he had to formally renounce from the throne, right, from the kingship here. So it gave an opportunity for parliamentary parties to recast German polity. After the World War has ended, we see that the emperor, he had to abdicate. Now all the parliamentary parties, they wanted to recast the German polity here, right? That was happening through elections. So what happened during this period? Let us try to understand. Now here students, like our topic suggests, we are going to talk about the Weimar Republic. So a national assembly, it met at Weimar and established a democratic constitution with federal structure. Yes students. So we are talking about a parliament, national assembly that met here, right, in Germany, and a constitution that was formed based on the federal structure. Now, are these terms new for you? You have learned some of these terms. Constitution, we all know. Federal structure, it means that the central as well as the state, they both had powers here, right? They shared the powers here in Germany. Now, deputies were now elected to the German parliament that was also known as Reichstag on the basis of equal and universal votes cast by all adults, including women. So here we see that there is this concept of universal adult franchise. It means that all the adults, right? So based on the criteria in Germany, all these people, men and women, both, they had the right to vote, and all the deputies who were included to the German parliament, they were being elected. On that basis, they formed this national assembly, this parliament here in Germany. So this is the image here of the national assembly that met at Weimar, and that is why we call it as Weimar Republic. Okay, re-establishment of the German polity here. But here what are we seeing? That the Weimar Republic, it was not being welcomed by its own people. Now, can you think of this reason why people were not welcoming the Weimar Republic? Why they were not happy with this whole concept of democratic constitution that was also based on this federal structure? Can you think of this reason, students? Yes. Now, when we talked about the First World War, we know that Germany was defeated badly in the First World War, right? And with this, they had to sign a treaty that was quite harsh and humiliating for Germany, right? So the people of Germany, they wanted to put the blame on someone, right? So they blamed the Weimar Republic also as one of the reasons, right, for the harsh and humiliating treaty that they had to sign, right, with the Allies. So a peace treaty at Versailles was signed that was harsh and humiliating on Germany, like I told you. Now here students, whenever a war ends, so the defeating party has to sign a truce, an agreement with the winning party. So the same thing happened here when we are talking about the First World War, right? So in the First World War, a peace treaty was signed at Versailles. As you can see the image, all the major powers here, their leaders, they have joined here in order to sign the peace treaty, right? So let us see what happened in this peace treaty that was signed at Versailles, which is also known as Treaty of Versailles. Okay, since it was signed here, all the major powers, they met at Versailles, therefore this treaty is known as Treaty of Versailles. So here, since we are learning that it was harsh and humiliating for Germany, let us try to understand how. So Germany lost its overseas colonies and 1/10 of its population. Now we know that a lot of resources was put in the war, right? And both the powers here, all the countries that were involved in the war, they had to lose a lot, right? A lot of resources were drained from Europe during the First World War. So here somehow they had to put in the money right, in order to revive the economy in Europe. So Germany had to face the brunt of it. Why? Because Germany, it lost its overseas colonies that it had established everywhere and a tenth of its population. It also lost 13% of its territories that were being divided among the victorious powers here. 75% of its iron and 26% of its coal was given to France, Poland, Denmark and Lithuania. So these were some of the winning countries here, right, that participated in the war, and all these countries, small countries, they were given 75% of its iron and 26% of its coal mines. Now imagine the situation of Germany. They are losing their population, they are losing their territories, the coal mines, the iron mines are also being transferred to these different regions. Definitely they had to suffer a major setback in the economy. Right, students? The Allied powers, they also demilitarized Germany to weaken its power. So they wanted to ensure that all these people, they should not again create a situation that could lead to war. So all the regions here in Germany, it was demilitarized. It means that the military forces or the army was removed from all these areas here, right, to weaken the power of Germany. Now, Germany was also forced to pay the compensation amounting to 6 billion, right, pounds here. Now, imagine the situation again. All these people, they already have suffered a lot. Germany has lost the war. There is nothing to gain more, right? But the situation has worsened with this Treaty of Versailles. They are losing their territories. They have to pay the compensatory amount here, that is amounting to 6 billion pounds here, right? So it was a huge amount for these people, okay? And also the regions of Germany, it was demilitarized. So definitely the Germans, they were agitated with the Treaty of Versailles and they were very much angry with the people, the German officials who had signed this truce, right? So therefore, after the war, from a continent of creditors, Europe, it turned into one of the debtors, definitely. So there was a time when Europe, it used to credit or it used to give credits to different countries, right? People who wanted, or the countries or anyone who wanted loans. But now, after the war, the situation changed, right? They were now suffering from huge loans. Now, the Republic was finally financially crippled by being forced to pay compensation. Definitely, what was done by the old empire in Germany, so the new Weimar Republic, they were facing it. They had to pay the compensation here, right? So those who supported the Weimar Republic, mainly the socialists, the Catholics and Democrats, they became an easy target of attacks, right? So all those people who were supporting the Weimar Republic that had been established, right? So these were the socialist, Catholics and the Democrats. They were popularly now known as the November criminals. Now, why were these people known as the November criminals, students? Because it was in November that the truce was signed. All the German officials involved in signing this truce with the winning powers here, they were now referred to as the November criminals. And they were supporting the Weimar Republic. And people were very much fed up with the whole situation that was happening here in Germany. So definitely someone was to be blamed for this. So Weimar Republic, they had to face the brunt of this whole treaty that happened after the First World War. Now this was not enough. Now recovery of Germany's loss was dependent on the USA. Yes. Now this time we see that USA is an emerging power. Right, Europe was a creditor at one time, but right now it had to face huge loans. So therefore, it became the debtors. Now here we see that USA, it now provided credits or loans to all the losing parties here. right? All the losing countries. So Germany was also dependent on USA. But again the situation changed. Now before the Great Depression that happened here in 1929-30, we see that in 1923, Germany's economy was quite bad. Why? Because the value of mark, it again dropped in Germany, right? So the whole economy here is dwindling, right? So here the people, they have to face again major problems. Unemployment was on rise, and now since Germany was dependent on US, another situation erupted here. What was that? So it was with the crash of Wall Street Exchange that happened in 1929, right? The support was withdrawn. So this led to the Great Depression of 1930. Yes, students. Now it was very much bad here. The condition of unemployment was on rise. Germany was also impacted with this Great Depression since it was taking loans from USA, but USA was in no condition to provide any more loans to these countries here. So definitely the situation of Germany after the First World War, it was not going to improve. In fact, it worsened, right? So there was this whole chaos in the country here. By 1932, we see that the industrial production was reduced to 40%. Workers, they had lost their jobs and were paid reduced wages. Since the economy here is going down, it means that unemployment was on rise. Industrial production, it also reduced to 40%. It means that the workers, they were now losing their jobs because enough production was not there. It means that the industries, they were not making enough money. So all the employees in the industries, they had to be laid off from the jobs. It created a situation of unemployment in Germany, and all those workers who were working there, their wages were reduced, right? So this was the situation here. Now think about it and think that people, should they get angry or shouldn't they get angry? Definitely they were angry, right? So another affected groups were the middle class who had this fear of proletariat. Cut. Start. Who had this fear of proletarianization, right? It means that this was an anxiety or fear of being reduced to working class. So all these people, each and every class living here in Germany, they were impacted with this depression and the dwindling economy, right? So the middle class here, they were also very much afraid of this whole scenario. They felt that they are also not going to have a lot of money left, and they would be reduced to the status of working class. So this was this fear in the groups of middle class here. Now at the same time, we see that Weimar Republic was also becoming weak. Yes, students. Now here two things are happening. The economy of Germany is not improving. It is decreasing day by day. And at the same time, when we look at the political structure of Germany, it is also not good. Weimar Republic, already people are hating the Weimar Republic. They are blaming these people for signing the armistice, or let's say truce, that happened in 1918 and 1919 overall. So here, politically too, Weimar Republic was very much fragile, right? So many changes or reforms that were brought in Weimar Republic, it was not good. The first one here is proportional representation. Proportional representation, it did not allow the people or the parties to form majority in Germany. So here we see that in Weimar Republic, all the parties that were participating here in elections, they were not able to form a majority group because of this proportional representation. And therefore, every time we see that a coalition was formed, which did not last long in Weimar Republic. So this was one situation here that happened. And the second one is the Article 48. Now, what was this Article 48? It gave the president the powers to impose emergency, suspend civil rights and rule by decree. So we see that all the time this article was now being misused by the president. The president had the supreme power here to impose emergency, right? And also suspending all the basic civil rights that all these people had. And to rule by decree, it means that to rule by law. That happened here in Germany. So by 1930s, we see that there is a situation of turmoil in Germany. People are not happy with the Weimar Republic. Politically, it is fragile and it is weak, right? And Article 48 and proportional representation, it also never led the Weimar Republic to last for long, right? So we see that the Weimar Republic, it was gradually disintegrating. Okay, so by 1930s, definitely people were looking for some alternative options. So Germans, they turned towards communism, the communism philosophy that we have already learned in Russian Revolution. So it was the spread of communism that was stopped by National Socialism. Today we know this as Nazi, right students? And Adolf Hitler, he became the popular leader of Nazi party. So here we see that this whole communism, the ideology that was being spread by 1930s, it finally got stopped by the National Socialism, the Nazi party that we are going to learn. And who was the popular leader? Adolf Hitler, about whom we are going to learn later on. So he became the popular leader of Germany, right, till 1945 when the Second World War ended. So here students, we have understood the crisis in Germany and how Weimar Republic, it was blamed for it and how it was politically weak, and all these situations, it led to the rise of Nazi party in Germany. We are going to learn about that later on. Now coming to the questions part here students, let's have a look at these questions, right, related to this topic. Now what kind of government was imposed on Germany by the Treaty of Versailles? So what should be the correct answer here? The kind of government that we have read right now was the Weimar Republic. Correct? So this was the government that was imposed on Germany after this Treaty of Versailles, after the First World War ended. The next question is, how long did the Weimar Republic last? So for how many years did the Weimar Republic last? We read that Weimar Republic, it did not last for a long time, right? People were looking for an alternate option because somewhere they blamed Weimar Republic for the situation that was created after the First World War. So the correct answer here, it would be 14 years. So Weimar Republic, it lasted for 14 years. So just remember the year here, okay? The next question here is, how did the Treaty of Versailles lead to the Second World War? So here Treaty of Versailles led to the Second World War. Now you have learned about the Treaty of Versailles, right students? That was signed after the First World War. Now do you remember all the clauses in this Treaty of Versailles? Yes. Now let us have a brief recap about what were these clauses here that were signed between these two groups here. Okay. So we saw that this treaty was quite harsh and humiliating for Germany. Correct? We see that they lost their overseas colonies. Now, since the question here it is focusing on how did this Treaty of Versailles lead to the Second World War, we have to somewhere mention what were the clauses, the agreements that were made here in this treaty. Because somewhere these were the reasons that led to the Second World War, about which we are again going to learn later on. So here just mention about these things, the situation that was created after the Treaty of Versailles was signed. So here they lost their overseas colonies. We also learned that they lost 1/10 of the population, 13% of the territories. Now in short, I am just trying to explain you here. You know the basic points that we have learned in this topic. So they lost 13% of the territories. Also 76% of the iron and 26%, around somewhere 25-26% of coal mines they were given to other regions such as France, Poland and so on, right? Also the regions or the areas of Germany, they were demilitarized, right? So the army was removed from all these areas. Correct, students? We also see that the area of Rhineland, it was occupied by the Allied groups here. Germany was fighting from the Central Power Group. So these are some of the basic points that were there in the Treaty of Versailles. Definitely, it was a harsh and humiliating treaty for the people of Germany. They were treated very badly after this. Moreover, they had to pay a compensation of 6 billion pounds, right? And they were forced to sign the war guilt clause, according to which Germany was responsible for causing the damages in the war, right? And whatever amount the Allied powers had to suffer. So they were asking Germany to pay for the damages caused in the war. Definitely the people living in Germany, they were very much angry, very much furious with this Treaty of Versailles and the German officials who signed this treaty. Right, students? So it became the base for all the German people and they were angry, they were furious and under the rule of Hitler. With the rise of Hitler, he gained the power. He made Treaty of Versailles as the base, right, to fight against these foreign powers here. That led to the Second World War eventually. Now we are going to learn about this again in the second half of your chapter, where we will talk about rise of Hitler and how did he led the Second World War. Right, students? But here Treaty of Versailles was one of the reasons, right? So you have to mention all these points in this question. Now the next question here is, discuss the crisis in Germany after the First World War. Now whatever points that we have mentioned in our previous question, definitely we are going to talk about it. Yes. So after the First World War, you can talk about the two groups that participated here. If the question is being asked in long answer question, so talk about the Central and Allied powers that participated in the war and Germany fighting from the Central power side, they lost the war. And as a result of it, they had to sign Treaty of Versailles, right? Which was humiliating and harsh for the people of Germany. You have to mention these points here. Now, talk about all the agreements, all the clauses that were given in the Treaty of Versailles. We have discussed it in the previous question, so I'm not going to repeat it again here. But some other points or the additional points that you have to mention in this question, let's have a look over that. Now, you remember students, we have talked about the situation of Germany. When we are talking about the economy, the polity, the society here, we see that each and every sector, they were facing crisis in Germany after the First World War. So by 1923, value of German currency, it also depreciated, right? So the mark value here, German mark value, it depreciated. Okay, as per the amount or the currency here, that was the American dollars. So here we see that economy is in crisis. Also, after the First World War, one important change that I told you happened was Europe, it transformed from being a creditor to being a debtor. Now they were in loans and they were now dependent. Germany specifically here was dependent on US for loans because they had to pay a compensation of 6 billion pounds here. So how will they arrange this money? How they are going to pay the allied powers here? So definitely they were in huge loans. Financial crisis happens in Germany. Then rise of unemployment that happened during this period, that is 1929 to 30, when Great Depression occurred. That started from USA and it also affected many regions, many countries here in Europe. Right, students? So here these are some of the points that you have to mention in this question when we are talking about the crisis in Germany after the First World War. Now people here in Germany, they were also very much affected and they were blaming the Weimar Republic for the situation that occurred after the First World War. Now, I have been repeating these points time and again here. So, you have to keep these basic points in your mind, students, because these are some of the very important questions that can be asked in your exam as well. So, therefore, just memorize all the important points related to Treaty of Versailles and what happened, what was the situation of Germany after the First World War. Okay.